Hello and welcome to Crime Update Files UK. Detectives investigating the death of a 19-year-old man in Leeds have charged a man with murder. Philip Bryant, aged 32, of Skinner Lane in Leeds, has been remanded in custody to appear before Leeds magistrates on Monday. The charge relates to an incident in Francis Street, Chapeltown in the early hours of Saturday, the 26th of August, in which the deceased suffered serious injuries which were to prove fatal. Detective Chief Inspector Damien Roebuck, of the Homicide and Major Inquiry Team, said, "Our investigation into this man's tragic death has identified further people of interest and we have a range of inquiries currently ongoing to locate these people. We are also continuing to appeal for witnesses to the incident in Francis Street, or anyone with footage that may assist our inquiries to contact our investigation team. Anyone with information or footage can contact the Homicide and Major Inquiry Team via 101 live chat or by calling 101, quoting crime reference 1323 047 5319. Two men are due to appear at Leeds Magistrates Court today, Monday, the 4th of September, after being charged with a series of violent offences in Wakefield. Nabil Khan, 29, of Moorcroft Road, Bradford, and Gary Darling, 53, of St. Clair's Avenue, Bradford, have both been charged with 2 counts of wounding with intent, robbery and possession of a Class A drug with intent to supply. The offences occurred on Friday, the 1st of September. The assaults took place on Park Lodge Lane, Wakefield, with the robbery taking place outside a taxi rank on Lower Warren Gate, Wakefield, a short time later. The victims of both assaults suffered serious but non-life-threatening stab wounds. A 17-year-old boy who stabbed an aspiring electrical engineer to death in a knife fight between drug dealers has been sentenced to 4 years in youth detention for his manslaughter. NIC Lobenberg KC, prosecuting, said the defendant, who cannot be named, and 17-year-old Jesse Nwokajiobi who died were concerned with rival drug-dealing mobile phone lines when violence flared in Cambridge. The Crown say this incident became a knife fight between drug dealers, essentially over who had the right to deal in Logan's Meadow, Mr. Lobenberg told Huntingdon Crown Court on Friday. He said that Mr. Nwokajiobi arrived at the small nature reserve next to the River Cam and drew a knife on November 19, 2022. The youth defendant also drew a knife, with Mr. Nwokajiobi killed by a single stab wound to the heart at 3:25 p.m., despite efforts by emergency services to save him. The prosecutor said, the entire incident, from the arrival of Jesse on his scooter to when he goes to the ground fatally wounded, takes 46 seconds. He said that the youth defendant, together with a second boy, fled the scene and were driven away by drug user James Heath, 45, who allowed them to stay at his home overnight. The 2 boys, who were both 16 at the time and are now 17, got a train to London, where they lived, the following day, Mr. Lobenberg said. He said Heath had been allowing them to stay at his home and ferrying them to and from their drug-dealing pitch. The boy who stabbed Mr. Nwokajiobi admitted to his manslaughter, which prosecutors said was an acceptable plea. Tanner Adkin KC, representing him, said he had a reading age of 12 and had been vulnerable to being recruited into criminality. The judge, the Honourable Mr. Justice Butcher KC, said, "This is yet another case in which a young man has been pointlessly killed and other young lives blighted as a result of drug dealing." Sentencing the youth who admitted to manslaughter to 4 years detention, the judge said the boy's actions were in response to Jess's arrival and threats, noting that Mr. Nwokajiobi first swung his knife, cutting the defendant's coat and thumb. The second boy, who was present when Mr. Nwokajiobi was stabbed, admitted to 2 counts of being concerned in the supply of Class A drugs and a fray. He was sentenced to an 18-month youth rehabilitation order including 120 hours of unpaid work. Liam Walker KC, mitigating for him, said the defendant had been a victim of modern slavery and exploited into forced drug dealing. He said the defendant was not armed, and that 6 feet 6 inches Mr. Nwokajiobi was wearing a balaclava when he arrived and drew a knife. In a statement read to the court by a barrister, Mr. Nwokajiobi's mother Rita Eva said she forgave the 2 boys, as family members wept in the packed courtroom. "I've forgiven the two of them, and I would really like to be able to speak to them and tell them that the path they are going down is of destruction," she said. Mr. Nwokajiobi's father Henry Nwokajiobi previously said that his son had moved from London to live with his mother in Cambridge in February 2022. Speaking in December 2022, he said he told his son to go and live with his mother in Cambridge as things were happening in Mill Hill in northwest London, where he lived. Heath, of Queen's Close in Harston, Cambridgeshire, admitted 2 counts of assisting an offender and 2 counts of being concerned in the supply of Class A drugs. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Mark Shelley, mitigating, said Heath was registered disabled since sustaining a back injury and got discounted drugs by allowing the youths to stay at his home. Maybe now is a good time to subscribe below, it's absolutely free. Police have released an image of a woman they want to speak to following an incident in Erith. At around 4:40 p.m. on Friday, the 11th of August, the victim, a 55-year-old man, entered a newsagent in Brook Street DA8 when he noticed a woman was in dispute with a member of staff. The victim attempted to intervene to calm the situation, at which point he was allegedly repeatedly assaulted, spat at and racially abused by the woman. The woman then left the scene. Police attended and conducted an extensive search of the area with the victim, but the woman could not be found. The victim did not suffer any serious injuries but was understandably shaken by the incident. Officers have been following inquiries and are now turning to the public to help identify her. Anyone who can identify the woman in the picture is asked to call 101 or post at METCC Ref CAD 5023 11 August. Detectives investigating a fatal stabbing in Wandsworth have charged a man. On Saturday, the 2nd of September, Earl Morin Britton, 36, of Rose Hill, Sutton, was arrested and later charged with the murder of Theo Porteous. He appeared in custody at Wimbledon Magistrates Court on Monday, the 4th of September. He was remanded to appear at the Old Bailey on Wednesday, the 6th of September. Theo's next of kin has been informed. Police were called to Thessaly Road, SW8 at 12:36 a.m. on Thursday, the 24th of August, where they found a man with a number of knife wounds. The London Ambulance Service and London's Air Ambulance also attended, and despite the efforts of medics to save him, 32-year-old Theo was sadly pronounced dead at the scene at 13.09 hours. His family continued to be supported by specially trained officers. Anyone who witnessed this incident or has footage should call police on 101 or tweet at METCC quoting reference CAD 3633, 24 August. You can also share information, photos, and videos directly with the investigation team online. A heavily intoxicated man was escorted home by officers only for them to find his property had been decked in cannabis plants. Officers were called to the side of the road in Annesley just after midnight on Sunday the 20th of August. A man was lying in the street heavily intoxicated and police decided to escort him home for his own safety. Upon arrival at his address in Mansfield, officers have detected the strong smell of cannabis. A pantry room was slightly ajar with a bright light shining inside. Officers have opened the door and found 22 small cannabis plants. Officers have searched the house and found a second room containing 16 baby plants, some of which had died. All plants were seized. A man in his 50s will attend a police interview in due course. Neighborhood Inspector Kylie Davies said, officers were concerned for the man's safety and decided to escort him home. Little did they realize that upon arrival at his address his property had been used to grow cannabis plants. This was good work by officers who followed their noses and have taken a number of plants out of circulation. We take drug supply extremely seriously as it is linked to many other crimes including antisocial behavior and violence. We hope this video has brought some value to you. If so, please subscribe below and help up to expand our reach on the YouTube network. A drug user blew up his flat and put his neighbors in danger during a botched attempt to make a powerful illegal substance. Sean Page, aged 36, was attempting to produce an enhanced form of cannabis oil by cooking the drug in liquid butane. Neighboring residents were evacuated after the explosion at a block of flats in Chatsworth Drive, Hucknall, which blew out windows and caused significant structural damage. It is believed that the blast occurred when one of the 3 men present in the flat lit a cigarette, igniting highly flammable gases that had gathered in the small flat. Nobody was injured in the blast on the 15th of July, 2021. Page later admitted to producing a Class B drug, telling police they were for personal use to help alleviate several medical problems. Appearing at Nottingham Crown Court on Friday, the 18th of August, he was jailed for a total of 2 years and 9 months after being convicted of criminal damage by recklessly endangering life and production of a Class B drug. Detective Constable Adam Penn, of Nottinghamshire Police, said, Page could very easily have caused serious injury to himself or others during this reckless and incredibly dangerous experiment. The windows in his property were sent flying during the blast, and it was merely good fortune that no one was passing by at the time. Such was the force of the blast that significant structural damage was also caused to the building, which necessitated very costly repairs. I hope this incident serves as a warning to others about the potential consequences of producing illegal drugs at home. A sergeant has been dismissed from Nottinghamshire Police after attempting to form a relationship with a victim of crime. Sergeant Nicholas Sackle-Appleby, who was a police constable at the time, was found guilty of gross misconduct at a public hearing on Monday the 14th of August. Between the 19th of January, 2012 and the 3rd of March, 2012, it was found that his conduct breached the standards of professional behavior. Sackle-Appleby had attended the address of a victim of domestic violence in January 2012. Following this, Sackle-Appleby continued to contact the victim despite having no involvement in the case. Nottinghamshire Police's Professional Standards Directorate carried out a thorough investigation in response to a recent public complaint. The hearing heard the officer's behavior was inappropriate as contact was not for policing purposes and was done with the aim of establishing an improper relationship with her. The hearing heard Sackle-Appleby was remorseful and his actions were out of character. Sackle-Appleby was dismissed at an accelerated misconduct hearing and will now be placed on the College of Policing barred list, meaning he cannot work in policing again. Chief Constable Kate Maynell said, "This was completely unacceptable. He was in a position of trust, and quite rightly the public do not expect this behavior from officers. The public should have complete trust and confidence in the police, and this officer's actions fell well below the extremely high standards we set. The vast majority of our employees maintain the highest possible professional standards, which makes it all the more important we address instances where individuals' behavior has fallen short of these expectations." Before we move on, please subscribe, like and hit the notification button below. A former detective inspector has been barred from policing for life after a gross misconduct hearing found he would have been dismissed today had he not already resigned from the force. Former Detective Inspector Steve Wragg faced a number of allegations during a one-day hearing open to the public and press on Friday the 11th of August. Wragg's behavior has been described as deplorable by Nottinghamshire Police's Professional Standards Directorate, which built up a case against him. Wragg resigned from the force on February 15, 2023, after the full extent of the allegations were put before him. Police are appealing for information after thieves struck at a building site in West Bridgford. Thousands of pounds worth of copper piping and stainless steel were stolen in the burglary, which took place on a site at the Loughborough Road and Bridgford Road junction. It happened after workmen packed up on Monday afternoon, the 7th of August, either during the evening or in the early hours of Tuesday, the 8th of August. Police are now appealing for witnesses and information about the incident. Investigating Officer P.C. Lewis Cragg said, "I would appeal to anyone who may have seen people on the site between these times to contact us with information. The offenders may have looked like builders, however, there shouldn't have been anyone on site during this period. I'd also appeal for motorists to get in touch if they have dashcam footage that may capture the offenders. Anyone with information is asked to call the Nottinghamshire Police non-emergency number 101, quoting Incident 209 of 8 August, 2023. Man who murdered teenager jailed for 23 years. A man has been jailed for life for the murder of Donovan Allen in Enfield. Timothy Adeoye, 20 of no fixed address, appeared at the Old Bailey on Monday, the 4th of September, where he was handed a life sentence to serve a minimum of 23 years. The outcome follows a trial which concluded on Friday, the 5th of May, with Adeoye being convicted of the murder of Donovan. Detective Chief Inspector Linda Bradley, investigating, said, Adeoye is a dangerous individual. He has not taken responsibility for his actions, however he will now have time to reflect on their consequences. Of course, there is no court outcome that could return Donovan to his family, and the thoughts of myself and my team are very much with them today. Police were called at 18:30 p.m. on Monday, the 7th of February, 2022 to reports of a stabbing on Ailey Croft in Enfield. Officers attended along with paramedics from the London Ambulance Service, LAS, and found Donovan Allen, 17, who had been stabbed in the chest. Despite the best efforts of members of the public and the emergency services, he sadly died at the scene. A post-mortem examination held on Wednesday, the 9th of February, found that Donovan had died from a single stab wound to the chest. A murder investigation was launched led by Detective Chief Inspector Linda Bradley. The investigation found that on the day of the murder, 3 males were at a flat in Ailey Croft waiting for their friend to arrive. Instead, the defendant, Timothy Adeoye, arrived. In order to gain entry to the flat, Adeoye produced a knife and entered the property. While Adeoye was inside the address, a male, who was with Donovan, called the flat and said that he was on his way to the address. Adeoye quickly told the group not to tell them that he was at the address. He took a knife from the kitchen and left the flat to wait for Donovan's friend in the communal area of the building. As Donovan Allen and his friend entered the building and headed toward the flat, Adeoye approached them, wearing a balaclava with a skeleton face on it. He pulled out a knife and told them to empty their pockets. At this point, a neighbor in the communal area shouted at the group to leave or they would call police. Adeoye threatened this neighbor with a knife. Donovan and his friend turned to leave, but Adeoye followed them. He then stabbed Donovan in the chest, causing the injury that claimed his life. As part of the investigation, detectives analyzed mobile phone movement that Adeoye traveled to Paddington train station after the murder, where he took a train to Bristol, and then went on to an address at Fore Street, Trowbridge, where he was eventually arrested on suspicion of murder on Thursday, the 10th of February, 2022. On arrest, Adeoye attempted to escape from a rear window and also attempted to throw out his mobile phone. This was recovered by officers. On the 12th of February, 2022, he was charged with the murder of Donovan Allen, 3 counts of attempted robbery, possession of an offensive weapon and threatening a person with a knife, blade in a public place. He was remanded in custody throughout proceedings. Donovan's mother said, Donovan was polite, kind, funny and talented, and he was taken from us for no reason at all. There are no words to describe the loss. If I lost a husband, I'd be a widow, and a child that loses their parents is an orphan, but for a sister who has lost her brother. Maybe now is a good time to hit the subscribe button below. Detectives investigating a fatal stabbing in Islington have made 2 arrests. A 30-year-old man, A, was arrested on suspicion of murder, and a 33-year-old man, B, was arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender. They remain in police custody. Detective Chief Inspector Neil John said, these arrests overnight are a significant development and we are keeping his family informed. I would still encourage anyone who has information, or who witnessed the events of that morning, to contact police. Police were called to reports of a stabbing on Axminster Road at 11:39 on Wednesday, the 30th of August. Officers and the London Ambulance Service attended. At the scene, 23-year-old Yahi Ahmed was found with knife injuries. Despite the efforts of emergency services, he was sadly pronounced dead at the scene. His family continues to be supported by specialist officers. Anyone who witnessed this incident or has footage should call police on 101 or tweet at METCC quoting reference CAD 2840-30 August. A Brighton man has admitted killing a couple from New Haven in their home but has denied murder. At Lewes Crown Court, Derek Martin, also known as Derek Glenn, was asked to enter a plea to the murders of Chloe and Josh Bashford. In answer to both charges, Martin, 65, said, "Not guilty to murder. Guilty to manslaughter." Each time, Martin was heckled from the public gallery, prompting Judge Christine Lang, the honorary recorder of Brighton and Hove, to ask them to allow the legal process to take its course. Martin, of the Orchards, in Molescombe Way, Brighton, is expected to rely on a defense that he killed the couple as a result of his mental state at the time. The bodies of Josh Bashford, 33, and 30-year-old Chloe were found at their home, in Lewes Road, New Haven, on Friday 9. Judge Lang remanded Martin in custody until Thursday the 28th of September for a case management hearing. Martin is due to go on trial on Monday the 27th of November. Previously, members of the couple's family paid tribute to them, saying that they were funny and loving. Georgie Last, a niece of the couple, who had 4 children, wrote on Facebook of her heartbreak. She added, "The most funny and loving pair. You loved each other so much it was just amazing to see what true love looked like. You were the most amazing parents to 4 beautiful, intelligent and loving children." A man who dealt cocaine in Guildford has been sentenced to 3 years behind bars at Guildford Crown Court today, the 29th of August, after an extensive investigation by the Serious Organised Crime Team. David Hitchens, 47, of Lime Grove in Guildford, was sentenced to 3 years imprisonment for being concerned in the supply of cocaine, 3 years imprisonment for possession with intent to supply cocaine and 6 months imprisonment for possession of cannabis, all to run concurrently. Police intelligence had uncovered evidence that Hitchens was dealing cocaine throughout Surrey, prompting a wide-ranging investigation into his offending. Using mobile phone data and automatic number plate recognition technology, officers were able to tie multiple phone numbers responsible for sending out bulk adverts for drugs to Hitchens. After downloading the contents of the phones, they were also able to corroborate messages on the phone requesting money to deposits made into his bank accounts. Hitchens was arrested at his home in March this year, where officers found 14 wraps of cocaine and weighing scales. PC Simon Laidlaw, from the Serious Organised Crime Unit who investigated the case, said, "Our relentless pursuit of Hitchens has meant that he is now off the streets of Guildford and unable to cause further harm to the local and wider Surrey community. Intelligence is key to our ability to take down drug dealers, and I would urge anyone who suspects drug dealing in their area to report it to us, so we can build that bigger picture of offending and hold perpetrators to account for their devastating actions. If you are concerned about drug use or drug dealing in your area, contact us online or via the independent charity Crime Stoppers anonymously on 0800 555 111. In an emergency, always dial 999.